It's Tracy again from RX Performance Products. Aptig. We're here with a new 1LE SS Camaro. It's going to be used for road racing, so we're going to be installing the monster version of our air oil crankcase evac system. It's about twice the capacity of the standard one, just because this is going to be driven at extended high RPMs. So a few things. I popped these covers off already. They're just a push on lock, come right off. We have taken and for the billet clamp and the bracket, I have put that together to save time on this video. So we're going to get right at it. We're going to remove these 4 standoffs that also hold the center portion of the engine dress cover on. Okay. We don't have to take this all the way off, we just need to move it back, but that may not be as easy as I'm trying to do right here. But there, that got us far enough. So if you can see right here, this U-shaped hard plastic line is going from the intake manifold behind the throttle body. You're going to push on the gray release lever. It's a quick disconnect, and do the same thing on the bottom portion. That one's a little more difficult to get at. Flashlight so I can see it better. There we go. So it's just pushing in on the wider one of the two that protrudes out. That releases it. This will be set aside. Save all your stock parts. If you want to put it back together to stock, for whatever reason you have, then you'll have these parts. So again, this is virtually a brand new car, but if you can see, yeah, it's just coated with oil inside there. So this has been drawing oil directly from the crankcase into the intake manifold, and we're going to change that and stop that ingestion. Slow the coking of the intake valves, greatly reduce knock retard, keep the engine oil cleaner longer, and a little bit more power out of it. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to take and spread this crimp clamp from the sound symposer. And if you don't know what a sound symposer is, it's this wonderful gimmick, I think it's crazy, that takes the sound through a tube to the firewall between the engine compartment and the driver's compartment, and it's going to allow you to hear that blah that the engine makes when you accelerate. So absolutely a useless thing, but it's a marketing deal. I like to hear the engine itself. So we have an identical clamp down below, and you'll spread that, unhook it, do the same thing. So we're going to remove this And again, this will be set aside, and for when we, if you wish to put it back to stock. Now we're going to go over to our parts, and you'll notice this odd looking fitting. This is going to go right in here and get it down in there flush. We can take our crimp and reinstall it if you choose. You're going to, let me grab a pliers here. And we're just going to recrimp it. That's our clamp, and I crimped it a little too tight. Let me spread it again. You don't need to get a separate hose clamp on this. We're just reusing that factory one. Okay, that's in there tight. Now, we're going to take the 10mm bolt out of this side of the thermostat housing, and in the past we were having you use the larger bolt down on the tensioner. That's a little more difficult, so we're going to try to see if we can make this easier for your installation, folks. We're going to take this spring clamp here, because this is going to push up against. We're going to pinch it and just spin it up. Make sure it's clamped tight back into the same place so you don't lose that radiator hose. We're going to tighten this down. We're going to move this vent hose up above the clamp so it doesn't pinch it. Much easier with the little impact, but I can't fit it in there right now. And we're going to tighten that up, get this as square as possible. And with the standard can, there's no problem with it fitting here. It's only 3 inches in diameter versus the 4 inches of diameter of the Monster. But the Monster, again, is needed here. So we're going to take the can, we're going to take a flat blade screwdriver. We're going to stick the screwdriver in and pivot it so we spread this so it doesn't scratch. Finish on the can. This is going to go down in like this. And you're going to put it down far enough that we're not kinking on this hose. Then once we've got it down in, we're going to tighten the billet clamp so it pinches and holds the can securely. All right, it's not going anywhere. Drain is on the bottom, quarter turn. You can put a water bottle down there, or you can use our drain hose kit that has a hose that'll go out the bottom so you can catch it in a pan if you need. So now what we've done is we have deleted the hose for the sound symposer. We have mounted the can. So now we have to bring in our foul vapors, our contaminant and oil vapor laden vapors are going to come from the valley cover PCV barb, which is the lower one. Take it, we've got a 3/8 to 1/2 inch barb here because the stock barb being 3/8, we're going to push that securely onto that lower one. And then we're going to take a piece of our 1/2 inch hose, and yours may have 3/8 all the way, or if it's the monster it may have 1/2 inch all the way. So we're going to push that firmly onto that fitting, and we're going to come over here and we're going to cut this to size. There's no check valves that go on the center portion. We don't want this to kink, and we want to slide it all the way up onto the push lock AN fitting. So when we put this back together, and you can zip tie to make it neat, but this will pull forward again when we're done, and we'll screw this back into place. So now we've got that. We're going to go to one of our outlets from the can, which will be this one. So we're going to, let me get it. Okay, so we're going to use a little adjustable wrench. We'll loosen this up, and we're going to turn this in this direction because we're going to keep this from coking. We're going to move this around into here. So again, I'm going to need a small section of 3/8 line for the adapter, 3/8 to 1/2 inch, and we're going to firmly push that on so that it's tight. Now that we've got that, we're going to bring our engine cover back into place. Pull it back forward till it lines up. Start our bolts, plug in our fuel rails, and we will take the time to fasten this back together. And this will work with the Elite E2X series can and the E2 series cans, very similar. So we've got that done. We don't need any more access here, so our side covers can go on. Okay, clip them into place. This goes like that. And we're going to take our check valves, and unless you are turbocharged or centrifugal supercharged, like a ProCharger or Vortec, if you're naturally aspirated or a PD blower, positive displacement top mount, you will use our standard check valves. These have an arrow indicating the flow direction. Blow through them to make sure they flow the correct direction and aren't stuck, and that they seal if you try the opposite. We're going to be flowing away from the can toward the engine because we're evacuating. So we're going to look at our arrow again, verify it's away from the can. And then we'll measure what we need here. I'll push this on. Little spit is, here is, I've taken a large Ziploc bag. I've put the stock parts in. As you can see, we've just unsnapped and undone things. It can all go back together. There's only one place that will be, oh, there's no place that we drill. This is a no drill installation here, which is real nice. So, and that we'll be putting in the trunk for this customer. So we've got this on here. We're going to push this on. There's no clamps needed. This is never under pressure. What we've done is we have taken it from intake manifold vacuum alone, providing your evacuation. But that's only part-time when it's stock. Anytime you accelerate, the reversion pulses coming backwards up the intake runners are going to cancel out any usable vacuum. So that's the time that pressure builds in your crankcase. You never want pressure in the crankcase. We don't want to vent either because we're breaking the system, and not only is that illegal in all 50 states, but you're allowing pressure to build first and then vent. We want to pull full-time suction on this crankcase. So we're doing so by using this, which is going to use the Venturi effect of the airflow past the opening of this is going to create suction. Not from restriction of an air filter, the Venturi effect. Do a Google search if you want to read up on the Venturi effect. So this is going to take over. As soon as this check valve detects there's no usable vacuum from the intake manifold and that this source is providing more suction, this valve will close and this valve will open, and it will use this to continue. When you let off the gas and decelerate, you've got intake manifold vacuum back. This check valve will close and this one will open again. So no matter what's your operating mode, we're always going to be pulling suction on the crankcase. Venting isn't used unless it's in a race class that prohibits actual crankcase evacuation. So now we're going to loosen this up and we're going to see what's going to be the most direct path so we don't have to, and I got that clamp on there. So I think we're going to go in this direction and we're going to loop back into it. So tighten the AN fitting back up and we'll have it. Okay, make sure they're good and snug, and that'll be an airtight seal. So we're going to give it a little lube, push it on. We're going to cut this here. We're going to make sure that the arrow is flowing away from the can, and we'll be able to connect these two together here. And let's see. Looks pretty good. So we've completed the install. We're just going to take a couple zip ties and neaten and secure everything up a little bit here. We're not doing our clean side separator on the new LT engines on the Camaros. The Corvette did not have room to do this, but this box located right here on the passenger side front of the cylinder head, the square plastic, is a good clean side separator that GM has included on these engines. So how this works is filtered fresh mass airflow metered air is coming into this initial separator, pre-separator, and this is going to trap some of the oil that would flow backwards through. And this goes into the main separator, splits out to both valve covers, as you can see, and the fresh air comes into both banks, is drawn down the oil return galleys into the center of the crankcase, all the while flushing and making up for the contaminant-laden foul vapors that we're sucking out with this line right here. And that completes the system. So we leave this intact. The factory one also, since this isn't full of contaminants, this is only when you're accelerating or at wide open throttle, does oil get into this. It will gravity drain back into the crankcase. You never want to reintroduce oil, or it's far more than oil, of what you trap in the main catch can or separation chamber back into it, because it is roughly 70% water and acids and about 20% raw fuel, and only 8 to 10% of it is actual engine oil. And that engine oil is saturated with abrasive particulate matter, something you don't want it in your crankcase at all. So we're extending the engine life. We're preventing up to 85% of the intake valve coking deposits. We're removing full-time the contaminants from the crankcase before they settle and mix, so your oil changes can be done 50% longer than in the past, and follow it up with oil analysis so you can document it and prove it to yourself. The fuel economy is going to improve because we've eliminated most of the knock retard, so your engine remains at optimum ignition timing advance more often. We've got a little bit more power because of that, but that's not the main reason we do this. We're extending the life of the engine itself. We're also, since we don't allow pressure to ever build in the crankcase, we're pulling suction full time. Your piston rings are going to remain stable longer, seal better, reduced amount of blow-by, and in the event you would have a breach of your piston ring and cylinder wall seal, any excess pressure would simply come and vent right back into here through these lines. It cannot build up and make enough pressure to blow out your seals. So this is a true crankcase evacuation system. It emulates a belt-driven vacuum pump in every way, with the exception that at wide open throttle, of course, we're not generating anywhere near the vacuum a belt-driven vacuum pump system is, which is your best solution, period, but they will not last on the street. So we've got a street driving, emissions compliant, except for the state of California, we don't have carb cert yet, and retains a closed system, cannot by federal law void your engine warranty. That's the Magnuson-Moss Act. You can read up on all the details on the Federal Trade Commission's website, so don't let a dealer tell you it can. Although many catch cans and any that are vented or have breathers do give grounds to void the warranty because damage can occur. And that's it. We're done.